How's it going, everybody? Welcome to ZooBox. I'm Shaun. Oh boy, it's been a minute. It's been a minute. My internet has been acting a fool.
It's a heartache, nothing but a heartache. Love until your arms break, then he lets you down. It ain't right with love to share when you find he doesn't care.
Can't get consistent speeds. Talk to Comcast half a dozen times. They can't tell you anything. They can't help you. They say, come back when it's fixed. Maybe we'll give you some money. So I've had lots of free time. There's been no nightcaps. I mean, that's like 8-9 hours of my week I got back this week. And I haven't even been able to go and download things to edit podcasts together. Usually, like I couldn't even go download the raw footage. The raw footage. I have this massive Day of the Dead podcast in the hopper. I couldn't even go get the raw footage from StreamYards. It's been real tough. It's been a tough week, so I've had a bunch of free time. I've been spending it in the lands between. That's right, everybody. Just like you, just like your mother, just like everybody else on the planet, I have been playing Elden Ring. Elden Ring is an open-world action RPG developed by FromSoftware and published by Bandai Namco Entertainment. The game is directed by Hidetaka Miyazaki and is being produced in collaboration with New York Times bestselling author George R.R. Martin, who created the mythos for the lands between. Oh boy. So I'm a big fan of the Dark Souls games, Bloodborne, Demon Souls. I've been playing them ever since they came out. Ever since they came out, I have been playing them. I've been a fan. It's weird. It's like I just kind of enjoy the atmosphere. I enjoy the challenge. And I've only actually finished 2 of them. I've finished Bloodborne and I finished Dark Souls 2. The other 2, I don't think I ever made it to the end. I've seen people play them. I've seen them speed run enough to know everything about them and what happened. But even then I just feel drawn to them. Feel drawn to the series. Something about the aesthetic and the vibe and the tone and the quote unquote brutal difficulty. I've never found them overly difficult. It's just that you have to kind of reorientate the way that you play games, right? Most video games are pretty easy these days, I would say. If you put it on just like factory set, the normal setting, the normal difficulty setting, most games are pretty easy. They want you to see through the end. They don't want to hide anything from you. They want to make sure you see every single thing they produced. Well, not Miyazaki. He doesn't really give a shit. He could care less if you saw half of his game. Because with a lot of the Dark Souls games and now Elden Ring, you could play them and miss large swaths of content. Entire areas, boss fights, lore. You have to be willing to go on a journey. You got to get into this thing. It's very different than most other games, right? And it just requires you to have patience and be a little bit more thoughtful than you normally are. Horizon Forbidden West, the sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn, that came out like a week or 2 before this came out, and I was actually playing that. And I was enjoying it. It's a big open world. It's got a lot of similar mechanics. It's got crafting and adventuring and a big open world and fighting giant monsters, giant creatures. But it's not the same. It's not the same at all. It's this idea of earning a power fantasy. Most games just give you the power fantasy, even when you first start out, even when you're lower level. You level up, you get better gear and stuff as you go. But with the Dark Souls games, or the Soulsborne games, as people have come to call them, you do something a little different. You have to do it more methodically, more thoughtfully, like I said. And you really feel like you earn it. You earn every inch of these games. And Elden Ring is unique in the series because it's the first open world one of them. And I've played about almost 50 hours so far. Almost 50 hours of the game. Just kind of exploring too. Most of the game I've just been exploring the world. Exploring the environment. Seeing what there is to see. Because, you know, the Dark Souls games, you would always come up against a wall at some point where you couldn't beat a boss or whatever, and you had to be that boss to really to continue into the game. And while Elden Ring has a few things like that, most of it is so wide open. So if you find yourself in a situation or an area that you're just not really ready for, don't worry. Just take your horse torrent and just ride off into the plains and find a new area. Maybe find something that's more like at your level. Maybe you'll find an item that will like really just bring everything together. Maybe you'll find a piece of armor or a weapon or some magic. Go out there, grind it on runes, dog. You know what I mean? Just fun stuff like that. and it's special and it's unique in that way. It's the first time I've felt like this about a game, that sense of like adventure, that sense of discovery. Probably since Skyrim. And before that, it would have been Oblivion. But this is the first game since like Skyrim where I really just like savor kind of just the adventure of just journeying around and looking at shit. Or just reading weird little pieces of lore, finding every nook and cranny, trying to get to every place on the map. And it's unique in the Souls games because they found a way to maintain the integrity of a Soulsborne game within an open world. That same sense of stress and terror that you might have felt in Dark Souls as you're creeping through dungeons. This Elden Ring has dungeons too, so you still get that classic experience, but even in the open world, you're just never quite sure what you're going to come across. Especially like the first like 20 hours of the game are so revelatory. They're so much fun. The sense of discovery, like everything is there. It's so awesome. And that's not something that most games give you these days. You know, even big open world games, you know, there's so much just dead space in between doing anything. But in the way they built and designed the world of Elden Ring, nothing ever feels that way. You always feel like you're coming across something new. You're discovering things. And also just the way that the geography of the open world organically kind of flows back into itself. It never feels like anything is like really truly out of place. You know, it just kind of eases you into new areas. You know, you could be in a big, like a fiery area where there's flames and fire, everything's on fire, the enemies are on fire. You might face a dragon in there or something like that. And then you could also, and then just veer off to the right and just ride off until you see greener pastures. You can go into like a misty forest where there's giant bears roaming around. Like tons of just fun, interesting things like that. And it's always giving you that. It's always giving you something new to look at. Even once you feel like you've uncovered the map and you've made like gains and you've discovered new things, and you think like, oh well, I've seen everything there is to see. What else could I possibly see? Elden Ring will show you something new. It never stopped. Even in 50 hours of playing through so far, it has never stopped delivering something new, like a new experience or a new type of enemy, something new to make me change the way that I've been playing the game, make me step up my game. Because, you know, you get kind of complacent. You know, if you spend enough time in one area, you're going to get very complacent. You're going to become very familiar with the enemies and their attack patterns, etc. And Elden Ring just has a way of always pulling the rug out from under you, but in a way that feels fair and that ends up being a lot of fun. You're probably going to laugh about dying just as much as you're frustrated, you know? Not to say that, you know, banging your head against a boss for an hour and a half is always fun. It's not. It's just not. And I just really love the world, and I love that everything is dangerous. Nothing is ever as it seems. This is like a mild spoiler for the beginning. So there's this woman I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she's like in this round table area. You get to go to this kind of hub area and meet other people that are there, other tarnished that are there to kind of do the same thing that you're doing. Get the Elden Ring, become the king or whatever the fuck is going on. I don't even know what the fuck is going on, honestly. And you can go into this woman's room and she'll offer to give you a hug. But what they don't tell you is that if you accept a hug from her, it'll give you a debuff. You'll lose 5% of your health until you use her charm. And nothing tells you like that is what's going on. Nothing is there to tell you that is what is happening. You just kind of have to figure it out yourself. But it's this great example, it kind of a microcosm of the entire Soulsborne Elden Ring experience. Is nothing is as it seems, and just because somebody is nice to you or offers a nicety to you or offers you some sense of comfort doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing. There's a duplicitous nature to the entire world, to the entire environment. And it's a lot of fun trying to figure those things out. You have to go into these games thinking that everything is trying to kill you. Even the people that tell you that they're there to help you. And then you think about it and you're like, well, that person never said they were going to help me. I just kind of talked to them. I just assumed because it's an NPC that's not attacking me that I can have a conversation with. Why wouldn't they help me? And it's such a great, there's so many great moments like that in the game. Everybody's trying to get something from you, and you're kind of like this naive player avatar. And there's a meta quality to the game that you take that kind of gamer's naivete, the way that we play other games, the way we would play something like Horizon, right? Like we would play that, and if you see like a character, an NPC out there in the world that you can talk to, and they're not aggressive towards you, well, they're there to help you. Not so much in these games. Just like all video games, you could feel like there's a sense of jankiness. It's kind of unfair sometimes. Maybe the hitbox acts weird. You know, if you've been playing these games for as long as I have, you know that is kind of just part of the experience that goes with the territory with these things. It's never been a deterrent for me. I've always really just kind of accepted that and just kind of embraced it as part of the experience because it reminded me a lot of being a kid. I get a lot of nostalgia from playing these kind of games. It reminds me of like very rudimentary, like kind of Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis games. The ways that you would like learn a level. Then you would learn attack patterns of bosses and enemies, and you would memorize them, and you would memorize the way to get through that, to progress, you know? The Dark Souls games have always had that kind of sense about them. And I would say Elden Ring, even with the open world, still has found a way to still give you that feeling. Just in a different, more advanced way. It feels like such a leap forward for the series. I'm so impressed by the development team. I'm so impressed with From Software of how thoughtfully designed everything is and how engrossing it is and how it feels like anything is possible and how it has maintained with all of those things, still this old school sense of gameplay. It's a joy for me. You know, these games are not for everybody. You know, if you're not kind of into what it's offering, you might fall off of it. But with something like Elden Ring, which, you know, is kind of taken on a bigger life than most of the Dark Souls games. I mean, when the Dark Souls games come out, it's always kind of a big thing. But that dies off pretty quickly. But this one seems like it's just caught a zeitgeist, and it seems like a lot of normies, a lot of people that normally wouldn't play something like Elden Ring are playing it. Even my brother Ryan has found himself really enjoying Elden Ring, and that's after he's bounced off of I think all of the Dark Souls games. The only one that he liked at all and that he spent any time with was Bloodborne, and I don't think he actually got very far in the game, but he was always like, "Oh, I actually kind of enjoyed that one." Because that one's a little bit faster paced. It's a little bit more like action slasher orientated, even though you have to, you know, kind of approach it the same way as you do other Souls games. It'll be a little slow, a little bit more methodical, a little bit more thoughtful. It's slightly different. It's a little faster paced experience, which I think that's why Bloodborne actually was another entry point for a lot of people, and also an off point for a lot of people because they thought it was kind of a betrayal of the Dark Souls style and tone and mood. Elden Ring seems like something that has kind of pleased everybody. And I've heard some interesting comparisons. I've heard people talk about how it reminds them a lot of like Zelda's Breath of the Wild, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, the Nintendo game. And a lot of people also like have pushed back against that, saying, "Oh, that's ridiculous. It's nothing like that," because Breath of the Wild does have that more kind of traditional open world feel of the game, where it's like there's a lot of nothing, a lot of gorgeous stuff, a lot of nothing. But the thing that I do think is similar, and I think what people are talking about when they draw the comparison, is that it's the way the world is designed. It's the way that the geography feels like it naturally shifts and changes. Because that game does a really good job with that stuff. That is another game that I thought did a really great job of kind of always giving you something new. I never really got sick of it. I probably beat it in like 35, 40 hours. So I definitely didn't spend as much time with it as I've already spent with Elden Ring. And I'm probably like maybe 50% of the way through, maybe. I don't even know. I haven't really delved too much into strategy guides or videos. I've watched some lore videos, but most of them have not gotten past where I'm at. I like to watch lore videos as I'm kind of working through these games. I think it's just fun to kind of inform me about the areas I'm in and about the people I'm meeting and the items I'm picking up, maybe get a little tips with that once you read item descriptions. They're games that require a lot of patience. There's something, like I said, is old school about it. It's like old school PC RPGs, where you would actually have to pay attention to the things that you picked up. You would have to read item descriptions and think about how that would work with the things that you have or the things that you have to do. There's a kind of a wonderful obtuseness to these games. Elden Ring is no different. And I really love that. I really love this thing where you just kind of randomly discover items. You don't know what they're really for. The description might not tell you, but eventually you're going to come across something where those items will be useful and you feel like you accomplished. It can also be frustrating because, you might not know what you're looking for. Oftentimes it does not explain to you what these devices, what these items are used for. And I can understand why that's frustrating to people. But I think for me, it adds to that sense of kind of the randomness of a real adventure when you're just kind of stumbling through things. You're just stumbling upon things and getting stuff. And it, to me, it just adds to the texture of the games. It's an all-consuming experience because even when you're not playing it, you find yourself thinking about it, and there is no shortage of things to look up, things to read, and even if you're trying not to like spoil yourself, there's stuff to check out. There's tons of stuff to check out. There's infinite YouTube videos. You just write Elden Ring lore and just do an infinite scroll. There's the Elden Ring wiki, which gets into every single item, every character, every place, every nook and cranny of the game. You could just spend hours and hours and hours upon hours of not playing the game, but learning about the game. It's just that in depth. Like, this is going to be my game for this year. As I've gotten older, I just don't have as much time to sit around and play games. Zoobox takes up a lot of my time as well. And that's become my new hobby. I don't really play video games as much as I used to, but I still like to crack one on when I'm trying to relax at night or something like that. And Elden Ring is going to do that for me. And it's going to take me probably through the year because I've already wanted to like re-roll another character. Like, I just want to get that early experience again. I got such a high from that early experience, and the idea of doing it with a different character and different stats, and maybe I'll do like a magic character this time. I'm usually just go kind of like hardcore tank dude. Usually a two-handed weapon. Got to get good at rolling. Got to get good at stuff like that. Jump slashing and stuff. So yeah. I'm all in. I'm all in on Elden Ring. All in. Well, at least until my internet's fixed.
To share when you find he doesn't care.
Yeah, so in closing, I guess I'll say I love this game. Like I said, it's going to be my game for the year. I'm probably going to be playing this for the rest of the year. Just off and on, coming back to it in the same way that I've done with all the Souls games. They're games that I've always will like dip back into and usually get really into for a month or two before I put it back down. But there's just something about them. They're just very unique. They're very idiosyncratic. And I think that Miyazaki has created something really special. And I hope he maintains his integrity. You know, there's a lot of people that are calling for, like, you know, calling these games ableist. They're too hard. Why can't there be difficulty levels, etc.? Like, as if this is a serious conversation. Like, these people have zero respect for art or the creative process or intent. They don't care. They just want everything to pander and cater to them in the most, like, mundane, boring fucking way possible. The idea that, like, everything should be made for everybody is a cancerous concept to the arts in general, and especially when it comes to something like video games. So, like, they have the audacity to go to, like, a creator and be like, hey, you didn't make it for me. You didn't make something I would like. Like, in what other fucking realm does this happen? Well, I guess it happens all the time nowadays. There's a real sense of entitlement with Gen Z and millennials about the things that we consume and why we consume them. Everything has to be made for us, or everything has to be some sort of virtuous cause or whatever. And it's really annoying. It's really annoying. And I'm glad that Miyazaki has kind of, so far, stuck to his guns, and he even kind of made a statement. I think he was just like, nope, not going to be doing that. We make these games very specifically. I couldn't add, and I think he even explained, he's like, I couldn't add a difficulty level. It would break the game. The game would just be broken if I did that. So fuck you. So yeah. So head into the lands between. Have a good time. Listen, if you gotta exploit the game a little bit, they're out there. They said they're not gonna patch the exploits. You know, there's no shame in that. Especially if you just want to see the game a little bit, see a little bit more of the game. You could juice yourself up. There are ways to cheat in Elden Ring. I'm not gonna say that I've done a lot of it, but they are definitely there. If you need to get a few extra runes, there's a very specific spot in the game where you can go mine some runes. A lot of fun. A lot of good stuff. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. And we'll see you next time. Hopefully sooner than later. Hopefully my internet comes back. Please.